What is up, guys? And today I'm going to be doing part two of my college visit predictions. So, if you didn't see my video, I think 2 videos ago, I did a video on Wisconsin and what I thought they were going to do in college football this year. So, I went there and then I went to Minnesota just last week. So, today I'm going to be doing part two of my college visit prediction series, which is Minnesota. So Minnesota last year they went 5-7 and then somehow got themselves into a bowl, which I don't really understand how that worked, but they did anyways, and they actually won it over Bowling Green. It was the Quick Lane Bowl, so obviously 5-7 was a bit of a disappointing year for them. And I think a lot of what went wrong, I guess, if you will, last year for Minnesota was at the QB position. They had Athan Kaliakmanis, and he was decent, but he wasn't really what Minnesota was looking for at the QB position after they had Tanner Morgan for several years in previous years, who was clearly a lot better and took them to a lot more successful seasons. So they went out and addressed that issue in the transfer portal, and they got a guy named Max Brosmer, who is from New Hampshire. He is an FCS Player of the Year finalist. I think it's the Walter Payton Award, which is the best FCS player. That's the subdivision below FBS, which is the main one. So they got him at QB. I think he'll be definitely an upgrade at the QB position, although we don't know how he'll fare against FBS opponents just yet. I think a strength of Minnesota's team this year is going to be their run game. They've got a solid running back in Darius Taylor, and he's going to be running behind also a solid offensive line. One of the weaknesses that I think they're going to have is in the passing game. Their QB and wide receivers and just receivers in general are going to have to gel quickly if they want the passing attack to be strong, which in PJ Fleck's years so far at Minnesota, I think the strength has always been the run game, where the passing game hasn't been necessarily as strong. Defensively, the front seven, I think, should be solid, but maybe the secondary is a little bit less experienced than they have had in recent years. I know they lost, I think, a cornerback and a safety to the draft last year, so the secondary might be a little less experienced and they might lack a little bit of depth, if you will, on that side of the ball. So let's look at the schedule. First off, UNC on a Thursday night in Minneapolis. I think that's going to be a good game. I do see UNC winning that one. It's going to be a close game, though. We'll see how UNC reacts to that Thursday night environment in Minneapolis. The weather won't be as much of a concern as it is only August at that point, so it's not really much of a concern at that point. They have Rhode Island and Nevada. I think those are both presumably easy wins, and they get 2-1. Now, here's where we get into Big Ten play, and this is where I think things might go a little off rails, if you will. You have Iowa at home, Michigan on the road, USC at home. I honestly think that they're going to lose all 3 of those, unfortunately. I mean, Iowa is going to have, obviously, strong defense, as always. That's always been the case with any Iowa team that I've ever seen. Offensively, they got a new offensive coordinator hoping to turn things around, so we'll see how that works. USC, it is at home, which could be an advantage, but unfortunately, I don't see Minnesota beating USC. I think that USC offense might be a little bit of a challenge for the Minnesota defense. And then Oh, Michigan was the one in between those two. Michigan on the road. Going into the big house and winning is difficult for anyone, so I think they lose all three of those. UCLA on the road, that is the next week, and I actually have them winning that. I think they might surprise some people after sliding down a bit with three straight losses, and I do think they win that heading into a bye. The next three, Maryland at home, Illinois on the road, Rutgers on the road. I have them winning the middle one of those three, which is Illinois on the road. I think they can beat Illinois. I think they can take on Brett Bielema and his team, but I have them losing to Maryland, losing to Rutgers on the road, which that one, the Rutgers game, will be very interesting to see for a number of reasons, but the main one is that Minnesota's QB from last year is now at Rutgers after he entered the transfer portal. So I have them winning 1 out of 3 games there, which leaves them at 4-6, I believe. And then they have Penn State at home and Wisconsin on the road, unfortunately. I do have them losing both of those. So that leaves them at 4-8 and 2-7, I believe, if I'm correct, in conference. Now, that might be a little bit of a rough prediction, but PJ Fleck's teams, for one thing, always overperform. And a stat I found interesting is that every full season PJ Fleck has coached at Minnesota, they have not only they've not only played in a bowl game, but they've actually won it. Every full season except for 2017, which was his first full season with the team. They've won a bowl game in 18, 19, 21, 22, and 23. So Fleck is 5-0 in bowl games at Minnesota. So I think, while it might be a little bit of a rough prediction, all that to say, I think PJ Fleck, wherever he is, whether he's at Minnesota or Western Michigan where he was before Minnesota, I think his teams always overperform. So I don't know if there will be a bowl game in sight this year for Minnesota, but like last year, if they do go 5-7, then they could sneak into a bowl some other way. So yeah, that is my prediction for Minnesota. I think my next one will be Big 12 and then SEC predictions, which will be longer videos before the season starts, which is just over a week away. So I will see you guys in the next one.